Okay, good day, everyone. My name is Ezra Grano, and I'm going to discuss understanding multilingual learners in the classroom and answering a couple of questions from the activity. The first thing I'd like to speak about is how scaffolding benefits classroom discussions. So basically, it offers many benefits because it provides students with enhanced language skills and increased confidence. Some of my favorite scaffolding strategies are like I'm using sentence starters and word banks for writing. It can be beneficial for both learners because it builds confidence and helps the students express their ideas without fear of making mistakes. I really like breaking down things into smaller parts and providing visuals, modeling answers to help students understand complex topics. This basically it supports comprehension and critical thinking for English language learners. Another benefit for both of them are like small group talks or like peer modeling. This allows students to learn from proficient speakers and because they basically hear examples of natural English use. That's one of the best things that could happen for someone learning English for the first time. It improves their listening and speaking skills. It basically encourages peer interaction. And over time, scaffolding can slowly be reduced as students gain more confidence and independence. Um, to answer your second question on the benefits of using a learner's native language as a resource, I don't have much diversity in my current classes. However, there are a few students whose native languages, such as Russian, Kazakh, they're quite similar to Mongolian, so they generally have a strong understanding of the second language. Although in the past, I had a Chinese student who spoke very little Mongolian or English. Though I'm partially fluent in Mandarin, I used it on several occasions to help him understand material as well as translations for like a word bank, word to word translations. So that experience was like my first real challenge in differentiating instruction for a multilingual learner. But now that I've learned how we can use a learner's native language as a classroom resource is really enlightening. It really helps students make connections between languages. It builds vocabulary. It strengthens reading and grammar skills, and it also values their identity and boosts confidence. Even monolingual teachers, like teachers who speaks only one language, like most of my peers, they can do this by encouraging students to compare English with their home language. Reading both languages and share their language knowledge with classmates. I think overall it would support learning in both English and the native language while creating an inclusive classroom. Lastly, I'll try to base my best practices from my personal experience on how I introduce academic vocabulary and content to students. I think teaching key vocabulary before reading or lessons can be effective. That can simply be student-friendly definitions, examples in context. Most times after learning new words, I play word games with them, so students continue to familiarize themselves with the words. Linking new vocabulary to what students already know from their lives, like a brief discussion in their native language to build understanding before switching to English. So, they have a better idea of what is actually being taught, so that they don't feel lost. Combining visuals and text, for example, showing images, using graphic organizers, acting out word, I do this all the time. Like, for example, especially like action verbs. Sorry, students, they ask me like, what is this, teacher? What does it mean? I just act it out. And they're like, oh, and then they get it. And it's really a easy and fast way to get them, learn that vocabulary or remember it. Revisiting and recycling vocabulary can help words stay long term, especially if you're using those words across different contexts and subjects. At my school, we have an ESL intervention for learners requiring extra support, and I usually send a word bank of the keywords I'll be using for each unit. That way, students familiarize themselves with the vocabulary so they don't drift off too far from everyone. So, like when they're back in the classroom, they already know the words and they're familiar with what's happening. And, simply encouraging daily use of those words. Those can be done through short writing tasks, discussions, projects, etc. In short, I think by valuing each student's linguistic strengths, deepening their understanding, and providing clear support, I think we as teachers can create an inclusive learning environment where all learners can succeed. So I hope I covered everything. Thank you for listening. Bye.